Szenac, hwa oi shipta arken da oyawa. Ev dan trata schmitz alftashut, auftrata awa ungedertisch. Hort nzanschen da oyawa. If you need a tool, you ask for it. Why do you not just reach out and call for it? So much energy spent on oration that could be focused on your craft. Why do you speak? He wanted me to tell him, yet I refused, convincing myself that I was fooling him. Is it so strange? Well, yes, look around, Szenac. So many of us, yet so few words ever spoken. And yet, somehow the city is still loud and vibrant, is it not? Why did I lie? It is. So why do you voice your thoughts? Our customs are important, are they not? I would think so, yes. What happens when customs and traditions are not used? Do they not become forgotten and lost? Indeed they do. So, you have taken upon yourself to keep our language alive, have you? Afraid that if you do not, we shall all become as mute as the Falmer are blind? Well, that seems extreme, but nonetheless, I don't see the harm. Perhaps you are right. It is not a good comparison. After all, the Falmer did not lose their sight by keeping their eyes closed. Master? Yes. Do you think of them much? Who? The Falmer? Yes, the Falmer. Do you know the tale of the Falmer? Like how they came to be? Yes, some. I mean, they are elves the same as us. Szenac! Keep your voice down. Such talk will land you in chains, or worse. I simply meant that, as elves, we share a common origin. Be that as it may, such talk is dangerous. What I meant was, do you know how the Falmer came to be with us? Of course. They sought refuge from the Nords above. That is common knowledge. But, may I be open? I expect it. Why? How do you mean? Why? Why did they have to be blinded? You just said it was common knowledge. Yes, I know what we've been taught. That we were protecting ourselves. That the Falmer could not be trusted. That they might steal for themselves our secrets. That they might use our very own technology and skills against us. But are we so insecure that we would place such stock in the fear of what could be, and be so willing to set aside what is, or was? I thought as much. The Falmer are not quite the victims that they appear to be. While they came here in the guise of seeking refuge, what they really came here for was our ability to forge Ethereum. Great spellcasters they were, but only we understand the properties of Ethereum. Ethereum? Yes, Ethereum. Szenac, what do you know about Saarthal? Saarthal? Yes. The Atmorans. The Atmorans built the great city of Saarthal, but in doing so, they found something. An object of great power. The Falmer heard of this discovery and began to plan against the Atmorans to obtain it. They were convinced that it was the key to reclaiming Skyrim, and possibly more. So, they waged war on the ancient Nords, destroying the city and all within it, save 3 men, Ysgramor and his 2 sons. But when they found the artifact, they discovered that their great magics were useless. They pondered it for days, weeks, months even, trying all that they knew but to no effect. That's when they thought of us, their brethren of the deep, and our knowledge of Ethereum. But as they began to plot against us, to steal our knowledge, something happened that they did not expect. Ysgramor. Precisely. Ysgramor rallied his warriors, and the ferocity of their retaliation was such that the slaughter was almost as great as the Falmer's original attack on Sarthal. The Falmer were routed, hunted, and killed. Those that were not were driven from the surface to us. They claimed to seek asylum, but the priests knew better. They could sense their motive, their desire for a reprisal, for the artifact. The remaining Falmer came here thinking that if they could convince us to help them defeat the Nords, that they could, while we battled the Nords, steal the power of Ethereum, and with this knowledge unlock the mysteries of the artifact. But, in a moment of unexpected genius, the priests instead gave the Falmer an ultimatum: return to the surface, or give up their sight and live with us in safety. So, we enslaved them. Have you not been listening? They gave us no choice. In order to protect ourselves, and all of Tamriel for that matter, they had to be subjugated. Think of what could have happened had they unlocked the secrets of that artifact. I don't know. It still seems wrong. Szenac, for all of your experiences, you are still so, what? Untouched. And that is bad? No, Szenac. No. Your innocence serves you well, but you must allow yourself to see that sometimes things are not what they appear to be. I do. What of the artifact? The artifact? It still sits in Sarthal, what's left of it at least, or so it is said. Oh, we tried. But Ysgramor made surface travel nearly impossible, let alone getting into the city. The two great battles left Sarthal in ruins, a ghost of its former self. Soon the Atmorans moved on and the city abandoned. It was only then that we dared search it. What we found was an orb with a protection so powerful that only an Aedra could remove it. And so, unable to unlock it for ourselves, it fell into obscurity. Until now. Aedra. The Aedra. Rte in Gentaundisch aufrte Falmer.
Hello and welcome. My name is Joe and I am the Panicked Monk, and you are watching Lost in Time, a Dwemer's Tale. Well, we got to hear a little bit of Szenac's thoughts as he goes back to some memories that he had with his old forge master, Ynadac, and specifically about the Falmer and kind of what they're all about and what happened and why did the Dwemer enslave them and kind of all that. So Szenac is once again showing that he's a little conflicted, does not necessarily agree with how the Dwemer treated the Falmer, but understands a little bit more about kind of how they came to be. So that is how they came to be into the service of the Dwemer. So he's not quite sure what to think of that. As we've noted in the past, the Falmer, as Szenac sees them now, couldn't possibly have come to the state physically or mentally, excuse me, as they are now. So he's trying to piece together why it is that they have devolved into the feral creature that they are currently. And some of this conversation that he's recalling with Ynadac might shed some light on that, indirectly at least. Oop, we got an archer. An archer that we had better try to stay out of the range of, or keep moving. Remember, serpentine, tomato. Let's call the whole thing off. So we're relying heavily on this crawl with our conjured wraith, which kind of serves as an impromptu. This isn't going to be a good spot to retreat to. Not like backing yourself into a corner. But our conjured wraith is serving kind of as our companion, which we are desperately grateful to have. So Szenac would be curious and wondering what Ynadac meant about specifically his ending comments concerning the orb being shielded, this artifact being shielded by an enchantment or something that was too powerful for the snow elves to penetrate. Well, no, we should think about that for a second. We don't know if what the snow elves found was in fact shielded by this aura, or if that was put into place after, in between the time that the Falmer had found the orb and the Atmorans had abandoned the city. So there's a period of time in between, because the Dwemer certainly would not have been watching so closely that, oh hey, the Nords are leaving, so let's go now. There would have been a gap, a period of time in between. How long isn't clear, but there would have been a period of time in between where Saarthal was not inhabited by anyone, other than perhaps the Draugr, which we don't know when they came to be, when they became a part of Saarthal. It's very possible that the Draugr were created and left there after the Atmorans had fled, or after the Dwemer had checked Saarthal out to see what exactly the Falmer were trying to search for and find. Oh, hey, ice spike, that's nice. So there's a few gaps in the timeline that we're not positive on. But we do know that whatever the Falmer found originally, their magics were not able to penetrate. And we know for a fact that whenever the Dwemer found after the fact, they either were not able to penetrate themselves or were not able to manipulate in some way. So that is, when the Dwemer found this sphere or this artifact, which we now know is the sphere that Szenac had just discovered with Tolfdir, we know that it was surrounded by this protection, this energy that couldn't be penetrated. Ynadac had said that it could not be penetrated even by anything less than Aedra, or an Aedroth, which would be singular. And if we look at history and lore, the Aedra inevitably will become the 9 divines, several of which the Falmer worshipped, including Ariel, which was kind of the top dog of the Daedra, or not the Daedra, the Aedra. So the Snow Elves, the Falmer, found the orb, could not decipher it, could not unlock its secrets. As they were doing such, the Atmorans, the ancient Nords, rallied their troops. Ysgramor came back, wiped out the Falmer, and scattered them, sending the remaining few down into the depths to seek refuge from the Dwemer. The Dwemer said, "Fine, you can stay here with us, but if you do, you have to eat these mushrooms, which will take your sight, or you can go back up. Your choice." So obviously the Falmer decided that their odds were better being blinded and staying with the Dwemer. But then there's this period of time in between where we don't know what happened. If a being or an entity came and shielded the orb, or if it had always been shielded as Tolfdir and Szenac had found. So we don't really know. Perhaps we'll find out in our studies, but as it is now, there's kind of an unknown, an X factor, if you will, insofar as what state was this artifact in when the Falmer found it versus when the Dwemer went to investigate. Obviously, the Dwemer weren't interested in trying to figure it out. They were much more interested in continuing their science and their own, their own machinations. I don't know if that's the correct term, but they weren't interested in following up on some artifact as it was, so they had left it and went back, and then all these millennia had passed between that Merethic era and Ysgramor, and until now, fourth era in Skyrim. So there's kind of a little, kind of a lot there to chew on, insofar as what exactly was going on and who found what and when and how, what state was it in. It's kind of interesting, so hopefully we'll be able to find some more out about that during Szenac's research. Right now he is obviously just trying to get through this infested cavern. It's not a dungeon. It's just really is just a deep cavern.
What did Ynadac mean? Aedra. Could he really have meant orb that we found, that I found with Tolfdir, was truly protected or created by an Aedra? I find that hard to believe. But then again, it wasn't long ago I would have found it hard to believe that I was here thousands of years later. I guess I must force myself to open my mind to the possibilities of the impossible. If an Aedroth really did create the sphere that we found, what is its purpose? What was its purpose? Why is it here? And how was Tolfdir able to bring down the protection around it? Who put the protection into place? Perhaps it matters not. But it is curious. Oh, Ynadac. I trusted you, and I believed in you for so many things, but could you have been correct about the Falmer? Were they truly looking to us to try and use us for their own gains? If they had mastered what the sphere offered, was that really what they were up to? And these mushrooms that we fed them to make them blind, to take their sight, how could that have done this to them? Did they meddle with the sphere to the point of corruption? Did they start? Did they put into motion effects upon themselves that they could have not possibly known, that brought them to the creatures that they are now? Could it have been a combination of our doing and the doing of the gods that they worshipped? Was it truly their fate to become this? To become these creatures? How did they come upon this cavern? There was the uprising, but that was well before what they are now. And why would they choose to stay underground? Surely it would not matter if they were in the light or the dark, if they cannot see. Their perception seems strong nonetheless, every bit as useful as vision. We'll take these eggs. They're interesting, these Charis eggs. There must be some kind of property. Nonetheless, they must be difficult to obtain and worth something. I do not like this. Damn it. Let's get out of here. Where is it? Where are you? Check it out. Surely it cannot be dead. No, it is not dead. Where are you? Show yourself. Oh, there you are. Ah. Skulking in the darkness at the very end of the hall. Well, it's not really a hall, is it, I guess? They are strong. Oh, it's cold. Brain cold slows me down. Oh, now an archer. No, not an archer. A staff.
So now we hear Szenac seemingly much less compassionate in some ways to the Falmer, referring them to as it. just goes to show that he's still not quite sure what to think of them. Whether they brought this current state upon themselves by dealing with this artifact, or if it was somehow the Dwemer's doing by subjugating him through these mushrooms that blinded them. Did it have some kind of ill effect that they didn't know, or maybe they did know, and the upper echelon, the priests, knew about, but didn't really let anyone else know about? Kind of this privileged knowledge, if you will. I mean, every society has such a thing where there are going to be a subset of peoples that know things the others do not, feel it is within their ability, their powers, to keep these things private and secret. The Dwemer would be no different. Szenac is taking these caverns and corridors very carefully. He doesn't want to be caught off guard, at least not too much, as he goes around these twisting bends. So, as we've mentioned before, when the conjured wraith doesn't go straight into action, at least there's no immediate threat. So it's kind of a canary in the coal mine, if you will. All right, we have plenty of Charis eggs. We're not going to deal with any of that. We have collected a lot of the glowing mushrooms as well. So hopefully when we get to an alchemy station, we can convert some of these things into useful potions, primarily for smithing, of course, but Szenac may, or he may discover there are a few other potions within his ability, besides some minor poisons, that are useful. Invisibility, perhaps. His sneaking abilities are not very good, but they may come over time. I don't envision Szenac as being one to, try very hard at sneaking. I mean, he'll try, but it's just something he's not going to be good at least not for quite a while yet. Because it just isn't anything that he really knows how to do well. Okay, there's a Falmer. And this up here just begs to be ambushed. So we'll have to approach this, as cautiously as possible, but with our limited spell abilities, our options aren't very extensive. So what can we do? Well, we can ghost walk and draw our conjured wraith into the enemy. So let's give that a whirl. See if we can draw some of these things out, because they definitely are generally aware of our presence, even in ghost walk, because, honestly, Szenac doesn't make a very big attempt to use it as a stealth technique, just because his sneak is not very good.
Under any other circumstance, this might be beautiful. The bioluminescence is amazing. I remember other Dwemer who made attempts to carve out such bioluminescent rock, to polish into some sort of keepsake, but it never seemed to keep its glow. It seemed to fade if cut from the living rock that it was part of. I don't know why, but none of the magics they tried seemed to help. They were beautiful, but only for a short time. Then they were just, well, any other polished stone. But unfortunately, I haven't the time to contemplate the beauty of stone at this particular moment. We have Falmer to deal with. Shield, sword, quickly. Oh, they're fast.
Oh, yet now she comes to help. Well, hopefully she was tied up and eliminating hostile Falmer in here while we were battling that thing. So, you know, Szenac has suddenly referred to the Falmer as it. Where is it? And I'm not sure if that's because he sees them as less than sentient beings, or just because he's caught up in the moment of survival. At the root of it, I think he's still conflicted on how the Falmer were initially treated by the Dwemer when they came to the Dwemer for refuge. Now, as Ynadac has noted in our opening dialogue, that the Falmer may not have been as victimless, or the Falmer may have been less the victim than we and Szenac would have originally thought, or had been led to believe, or led himself to believe. But he's starting to get a little clearer picture on kind of the relationship that the two elves, the two elven races had with one another. And that perhaps the Falmer really did intend to use the Dwemer and the Dwemer's knowledge against them, or at least for their own purpose. Now, Szenac is not, obviously, in that upper echelon and not privileged to a lot of, or any of the information of the high priests, such as Kagranak was, and his peers. But it doesn't necessarily bring a ton of comfort. Ignorance never brings one a lot of comfort, right? So he's still trying to figure all that out. but he at least, through the memories that he's, that have been jogged to the forefront so far, he's beginning to understand more and more. He's kind of almost he kind of almost has a whole new perspective, from the outside looking in at this point, in much the same way that everyone else has, really. He's seen his race, he's seen his people from a whole different light. And it's, well, for lack of a better term, enlightening. Alright, so there's obviously a lot of opponents, enemies, I guess, up ahead, so I think our ghost walk helped us quite a bit in this particular case, where we were able to blink back from our origin, way back here, well away from danger, and let our conjured wraith do her thing. In the absence of a bow or a crossbow, this is kind of our next best thing. We do have one ranged defense or offensive spell. We do have a couple of staves, which Szenac is not convinced quite yet is the way to go, but we shall see if maybe they prove a little more useful. Right now he is relying on his armor and his shield, really, along with the conjured wraith, so that is his primary go-to. But it's becoming very apparent that even though his Dwemer-made armor is serving him well and protecting him and kind of, saving his bacon, if you will, it's clear that he needs to expand his abilities and improve his weapon and armor in one way or another. So he is learning, kind of the school of hard knocks, if you will, but he is learning. Kind of amazing what the Falmer can accomplish from the chitin off of these chars. They make their huts from them. They make armor from it. They make chests from it. Probably their weapons have some kind of chitin element to them. So you can definitely see that the Charis are extremely important to the Falmer. Which, I guess, like a domesticated cow or, domesticated cattle would be to, many people for the milk and hide and meat. The Charis are much the same for the Falmer, it appears. There's just, they become very diverse at how to use the animal and really every piece of it. Now this kind of seems interesting because we know that the Falmer are very good at using Charis chitin in their constructions. This platform seems to be kind of out of character for Falmer as they are now. So it makes you wonder who built this, because it just does not have a Falmer feel to it. With the wooden planks, and it just wood does not seem like something the Falmer. It's not a material that they use. So who was down here before the Falmer? Who created this? And as far as the barrels go, did the Falmer just adapt? Did they find them? I mean, they're intelligent creatures. I think that's proven to some extent, at least. I mean, maybe not. You know, they're not going to be whipping out math equations, but they're definitely intelligent. So, did they take these barrels and adapt them? I don't think they built them. It doesn't seem like something the Falmer would build, but they seem very well equipped to scavenge and adapt items to their needs, so it's kind of interesting to see what kind of is native to a Falmer and what isn't. And it begs the question of, if they didn't create it, if they didn't make it, who did? Who was down here? What were they looking for?